Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative podcast. This is the podcast where we have digital discussions, the worlds of TV, film, pop culture, sports. Depending on who we interview, we talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis, and today you know me as PD Beats. We hope everyone is doing okay during this quarantine due to COVID-19, and I hope everyone's staying safe and staying indoors. It's important that we stay indoors so we could get back to our normal lives sooner than later. So really excited to be joined by the creator and showrunner of a show that's going to be released on Apple TV on Friday, April 3rd, I believe. April 3rd is the date. Yeah, we are with the showrunner and creator of Home Before Dark, Dara Resnik. Dara, welcome to Popternative.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a nice bright spot on my quarantine day.
It's funny because we on the preamble before we pressed record, we were like, what day is it today? Even we're losing track of time, right? So I wanted to make sure it was April 3rd.
It's still April 3rd, yeah.
Well, congratulations. I mean, the trailer looks phenomenal, and it's a good time for people to consume content right now.
That's what we're hoping. You know, I do think that the show really will hit a sweet spot for families that need something to watch together while they're locked in their houses with each other.
So I want my viewers to kind of get to know you and how you got into TV show running and content creation. But before that, let's talk a little bit about Home Before Dark. Talk a little bit about what people can expect from this series.
Home Before Dark is built as a co-viewing show. All of the women who created this together, me, Dana Fox, Joy Gorman, we all had children and were forced to watch all kinds of things that we didn't really want to watch with them. And so we created something that we knew would speak both to adults and to kids and everybody in between. It has this incredible mystery about a dad who brings his entire family from New York back to the teeny town in Washington that he came from. And his daughter, his 9-year-old daughter, very quickly realizes that there was a giant secret that dad was keeping from the family and decides that she's going to uncover that and shed some light on it.
Mm-hmm. And an amazing cast. Can you talk about the cast a little bit?
Yeah, we were so lucky. We got Brookyln Prince from the Florida Project. We were so wowed by her talent, even at 6 and 7 years old. And Joy Gorman wanted her for our project immediately. But it was funny because Dina and I kind of looked at each other and said, but this isn't for a 6-year-old. And she goes, children age. I don't know if you've noticed, but your children have age. And we auditioned her. It was no brainer that she was our Hildy. It's, obviously incredibly difficult to find somebody who can carry an entire show. And she does it as well as any adult possibly could. And then we lucked out that we landed Jim Sturgess in between projects. He, I think all of us have had a crush on him since Across the Universe. And we wanted a dad who was both beautiful and relatable as a father, but also was somebody that, women across America would think, why isn't my husband like that?
Have you ever seen his movie 21?
Yes, he's incredible.
That's a great movie. That's a really good movie. See, a lot of people know him from Across the Universe. 21 is what I come to mind with.
What's sort of funny about 21 for me is that one of those guys who was one of the real guys who was from 21 is a friend of mine. He's a TV writer.
Oh, wow.
Here in LA now. Yeah, his name's Matt Lau. So when I met Jim, one of the first things I said is, I know one of the guys that your whole team is based on.
That's really cool, but it's pretty cool. And that's what I think has to do is there's so much content out there, and there's so many different people that have different tastes that are watching content. A lot of people might recognize him from Across the Universe, but I recognize him from 21. I feel like that happens a lot more. It depends. People have different preferences because there's so much stuff out there right now, and people are doing a lot of different things and working on a lot of diverse projects. What do you think about all that?
I think that that's actually great. I think that the access to content, if you had told me when I was a 10-year-old movie geek that one day I would have apps that had access to every single movie I ever loved, is actually one of the reasons we're so thrilled to be working with Apple. Is that, like, that Apple app really does, it is a bit of an aggregator. You can ask it where I can watch literally anything, not just Home Before Dark, but, you know, if you like Jim Sturgess and Home Before Dark, you can then watch anything that Jim Sturgess was ever in. So I think it's pretty incredible.
Do you know what I watched? What I watched on Apple TV that I really enjoyed was Servant. Did you watch that yet?
Servant is incredible.
So good.
I don't want to give any spoilers away on your show, but yeah, people should check that out for sure. And I watched Ghost Rider with my daughter, which was really cool. And I thought the morning show was fantastic.
There's a lot of content right now, and people are calling it like the so-called like streaming wars, but I feel like a lot of people I talk to, like, they're watching like the content, like they're watching everything.
Yeah. And I actually think I think that's a good thing. I think it means that we are putting out into the universe as creators and writers different troves of experience, and people all over the world are accessing that trove of experience. One of the things that I do on the side is I work for a State Department program called the Middle East Media Initiative, where they take American writers and they bring them into Middle East to meet with Middle East writers. And it's astounding to me how much of our content they're watching, and how it's really, our culture has access to them, and how we have access to their culture in a way we never did before.
No, that is very true. And it's really true. Like, that just kind of reminds me too of, like, I mean, I've been watching a lot of, international TV and film, like, from all over the world. And I think that, this quarantine happened and people were looking for a lot of things to watch. And there's so many amazing shows and movies from around the world that I think, like, have you seen Parasite?
Oh my God, Parasite's incredible.
Like, how do you I mean, you're a creator and a showrunner of TV, and you've worked in television and writing. How do you come up with something like that?
I mean, I think that was an incredible parable of his culture, right? He was writing a movie that was a parable of his culture. I mean, not to bring it back to Home Before Dark, but I will. It's something that was really important to the three women that created this. Was we all grew up on Amblin movies that all starred little boys, and we thought, what happens if we put a little girl at the center of that? We wanted to take our life experience and our trove of experience and put that at the center of the story. So yeah, I mean, we're all taking pieces of our culture and putting them out into the world.
Now, when people watch, the trailer for Home Before Dark, I mean, you get a lot of elements, you know what I mean? There's, the drama, there's a little bit of the comedy in there, a little bit with, like, the interactions between Hildy and her father, but there's also, a little bit of, like, the dark, not necessarily horror, but like a little bit of a thriller aspect of it. Was it safe to say that you kind of wanted to create a show that had, like, as many elements as possible to work together, Dara?
We did. We intentionally created a show that had disparate elements that hopefully speak to one another. It has dark and it has light. It has a little bit of This Is Us. It has a little bit of some of the procedural work that I've done on other shows. It has a little Broadchurch in it. It has a little Amblin, a little, while it is something I think in live action you hadn't seen before, which was intentional, I think you have seen stuff like this when you watch Pixar movies, right? I mean, Pixar movies speak to every single age group watching all the time, and those movies can be just as dark as they are light. They can make you cry, they can make you laugh. That was our aim with every episode and every scene.
Absolutely. You mentioned, past projects you've worked on. Can you kind of share a little bit as much? Because I know, like, you've done a lot of stuff, and it's amazing. You have a very cool resume. But can you kind of talk about some of the projects you've done before Home Before Dark and your involvement in them for my viewers?
Sure. I mean, I could even tell you, like, what I learned from each of those.
Sure.
And how they informed Home Before Dark. I mean, one of the things that was really interesting was this was my first show running job. And I thought it was so interesting because even though it was my first showing job, it felt organic for me to take that position. And I feel like I was training my entire career specifically for Home Before Dark. So my first show was Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, which was a short-lived Aaron Sorkin show. And I learned from that how to write, poppy dialogue, outstanding dialogue, and how important that was. It has the show has some of the whimsical nature of Pushing Daisies, and these sort of offbeat crime stories that Pushing Daisies had. I learned how to write serialized drama on Mistresses, the Alyssa Milano show. I learned how to write procedural and mystery on Castle, which obviously it has a big overarching mystery.
Love that
then
show.
I was on Jane. It was a great show, and also Nathan Fillion is from your region where you're broadcasting from.
Yeah.
And then on Mistresses, I learned drama, and on Shooter, I learned how to do big action set pieces, which we have plenty of. On I Love Dick, I learned how to put the female at the center of the show. And then I was on Daredevil, which, taught me everything about mythology and being faithful to the mythology. And then here I am, ready to run my own show. So...
Showrunner it's a term that it kind of sounds obvious, but it might not be as obvious. What exactly do you do as a showrunner? Can you kind of take us through kind of some of the processes?
Sure. I mean, the thing that's incredible about being a showrunner is when you write, for example, when you write movies as a screenwriter, you write this blueprint and then you send it out into the ether and you have no control over what's going to happen to that script. When you're a showrunner, you are there at the inception. You create the material, you write the material, you develop that material, and then when you shoot it, you're part of casting, picking costume designers, picking the costume, picking your art director, choosing your DP, you're on set, then you're back in the writer's room creating more stories. You have your hands in everything in a way that is incredibly creatively satisfying, because you're not just, birthing a baby and then sort of sending it out into the world. You're raising the child.
No, it's true for sure. And it's funny, you mentioned Nathan Fillion being Canadian, and man, that guy is amazing, and he's so the popularity of that human being is like insane. Like, people love him.
And I loved working with him. He's still, I have like a handful of actors that you just like hold dear to your heart. He is one of the people I most loved working with.
But so I'm from Montreal originally, and in Montreal, Quebec, we do 2 years of cégep after you graduate from high school. It's basically specialized college, right? So you can go in, and that's when people want to get their feet wet, in different fields, and some people go into medicine, and some people go into literature. And I actually did the cinema video communications program. So it's a 2-year film communications. I then ended up doing, my bachelor's and master's more in the communications, PR type of stuff. But I was once a film kid, I guess. So I actually am writing, a short horror film right now that I'm working on. But what I want to say, because you were talking about what you learned on some of the shows and seeing the growth of seeing your growth and people you work with, their growth, is a lot of my friends that were in my classes, this was 10 years ago, they're on some amazing shows right now, or working on.
Incredible to watch.
It's so cool. My good friend Jesse Camacho is in Lock and Key, which just got renewed for season 2 on Netflix.
Yeah, it's cool to watch. One of the things I teach at USC on the side. I teach pilot writing, and I always tell my students that you don't see it now, but the people that you're graduating with are going to be your biggest allies, because one of you is going to get a job first and then pull the other one into that job, and then another person will get a job. You pull people up. The people that you graduate with really are the people that you rise together with in the business. It's awesome that you're writing. You have a little time right now to get the script.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? I have a lot of friends that are, writers and actors, and they were telling me there was so much interest that people were like, whoa, I want to see this movie when it's done. I want to, let's make it. And I'm like, I have no idea where to start, because my background is more in sports and PR media and everything. But I kind of like that. I kind of want to be that guy that wow, this guy, he's writing a horror movie. I want it, the whole Jordan Peele thing, Jordan Peele's writing horror movies. That was one of the things that kind of inspired me to kind of wear many hats, seeing guys kind of do things that they're not necessarily known for.
It's one of the things that I feel proud about when I look at my own resume is, Pushing Daisies is not the same as Shooter, and Shooter is definitely not the same as I Love Dick, and Daredevil's not the same as Jane the Virgin. And one of the things that I say all the time to people who want to create and write is that you truly can, as Lin-Manuel Miranda so eloquently said, you can write your way out. You can write your way out of anything. And you see that with Jordan Peele. You see it with writers all the time. So it is one of the beautiful things about the profession that we've chosen.
I love a lot of different genres, but horror is just a genre in the last couple of years that's kind of stuck with me because it's grown, I feel like, and matured amazingly in the last couple of years. Like some of the horror movies that are coming out, it's like, how do they even come up with that, and how do they kind of put that together? It's just insane. Like what he did with Us was like you do Get Out and then you do Us. It's incredible. You know what I mean? Yeah. Have you ever thought about? I mean, I'm sure you maybe in your past, you worked on some kind of horror elements.
Well, it's funny that you say that because the thing I'm attached right now onto a Blumhouse project.
Ooh, now we're talking.
Yeah, I can't say a lot.
No, I know.
But they got the rights to a podcast that I'm obsessed with, called The Horror of Dolores Roach. And if you have not listened to it, it's phenomenal. It's sort of an update of the original Sweeney Todd tale from the Penny Dreadful in the 1900s, and I'm really enjoying working in the horror space.
Okay. Well, I need to know more about this when you're allowed.
More about that, yeah. But I'm sort of
Damn! You got me. No,
like I said, I like to do lots of different genres.
But that's it. But that's important, right?
Totally. And I actually think it's one of the things that's really fun about Home Before Dark when people get to watch all 10 episodes is that you're going to see pieces of E.T. and pieces of John Hughes and there's even the opening to episode 2, not to spoil too much, may have a little bit of like a horror homage feel to it. So, as I think I had a writer's room full of cinema lovers. And so it was really fun for us to say like, okay, well, what homage do we want to do? In
John Hughes. So have you... John Hughes, that's a good. Oh
yeah, you'll see some John Hughes in there.
Have you ever? I'm sure you've done this, but I did this with my parents a couple of weeks ago. If you just look at like everything he's been involved with, it's nuts. Right? You could use the word genius with John Hughes.
He was a genius. I mean, what's interesting, I will say, as a feminist, is looking back at some of those moments in some of those movies. Some of them don't hold up in the Me Too movement as well as they once did. But it doesn't make me not love. It's interesting. It doesn't. I don't love it any less.
Seinfeld too. I don't know if.
Yeah, no, totally.
Look
back and you're like, yikes.
It's still one of my favorite shows, but you know what I mean? Like it's like you can't do that these days.
Totally. And I think that's a good thing, but I also think it's nice that stuff exists as a relic of how things once were. I mean, I think. I do actually think that like John Hughes is a pretty accurate time capsule of the period. And we have, like I said, we have flashbacks in our show, and you can see some of those time capsule relics of the past.
I'm excited. Well, I'm excited to check out Home Before Dark. I'm sure everyone is. Thank you so much for doing this interview. I really appreciate it.
Totally my pleasure. I'll come back again on my next project. This was fun.
The Blumhouse project.
Yes, sir.
Work it. Can you plug away? People can watch the show on Apple TV.
Yes.
But is there any way they could follow? Are you on any social media? Can they keep up to date with you?
I'm very active on Twitter. I think as a writer, words are my medium. I find Twitter a fun little challenge.
Yep.
I'm at Badass Mom Writer.
Wow.
On Twitter.
Great handle.
And you'll see me posting tons about Home Before Dark and all the Home Before Dark coverage right now. Especially if you're on Twitter, it's sort of a nice break from all of the pandemic coverage.
Absolutely.
So we're April 3rd on Apple TV Plus, which you can get on basically any streaming platform.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, this has been Popternative. Please check out Home Before Dark on Apple TV Plus, April 3rd. You heard Dara say that. It's going to be great. This has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. And until next time, this is Dara Resnik and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.